Hi friends, welcome to Mountain Meadow Homestead. My name is Melissa if you're new here, and today we're going to discuss part 2 of our 3-part series when it comes to our gardening journal. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, I highly recommend that you do that. It just discuss the different pages that I put in this journal for myself, the items that I want to track, and the different lists that I would like to make to be more prepared for gardening this year, as well as preserving the harvest that comes out of that garden. And so I will put that down in the description box below so that you can go and watch that. But before we get into the topic today, which is creating a preservation list that we will use at the end of the gardening season, and then taking that list and translating it to how many seedlings I need to start of different types of plants, I want to talk about our pantry. And this is going to be kind of a controversial subject, but um, we don't believe in having a long-term food storage or an emergency food storage. If you go down in our pantry, you won't find number 10 cans full of freeze-dried or dehydrated food or food that has a 25-year shelf life. We wanted to take our self-reliance to the next step up, which was basically learning skills to garden and preserve the food that comes out of our garden and becoming a little more self-reliant in that direction. So, obviously, with that, there is sourcing some foods locally or through trusted sources like Azure Standard. And so, because of where we live, we can't grow absolutely everything ourselves, or we're limited to our HOA rules when it comes to meat products that we can grow ourselves, like having a beef cow um, a, or a pig. And so, we do source some things locally, but we wanted to really hone in and focus on perfecting our skills of growing what we can and then therefore preserving those goods. Now, if all you have is a long-term food storage or an emergency food storage, like that is a great start and I applaud you for that. Like keep that up. It is better to have something than nothing, and it is one of the first steps in being self-reliant with our food. But um, we did want to create a working pantry for ourselves and not rely on purchasing expensive emergency food storage for our pantry. And so what we do is we preserve food via either canning, freeze drying, or freezing. And then we rotate through that food over the year. So for example, at the end of the gardening season, we harvest all of our tomatoes. We then can up diced tomatoes, put those diced tomatoes on our shelf, and then we're rotating through that throughout the year, making soups and stews and the like. And then we start the cycle over again with the new gardening season and harvesting and preserving again. So we do like to have at least a year, if not 2 years, quantity on our shelves of any given produce. And so we essentially that gives us the ability to, if we have like a bad harvest one year, to have enough. So we do the same with our 5-gallon buckets. We keep wheat berries, oats, beans, sugar, and that type of thing in 5-gallon buckets. And as we are consuming up a 5-gallon bucket, we pull that off the shelf, set it aside so we know that we need to replenish that. And then we're moving the next bucket forward to consume. And the cycle continues. So all that to say, that is what was kept in mind as I was creating this preservation list is the fact that our pantry is not a just in case pantry. It is a pantry that we work throughout the year. What I did is I sat and I thought about all the types of foods that we like to eat and certain recipes. Like we like to have pizza once a week. We commonly will have like a meat with veggies and a starch. And we do like to have some fruits preserved. And so I just thought about all of the ingredient components that we would need to have preserved to make most of the foods that we do eat. And then I also brought out my preservation books. So like I have my the all new ball book of canning and preserving. I have my freeze drying the harvest book by Carolyn Thomas. And I have the complete book of home preserving by Ball. And so I just went through these books to get inspiration or to be reminded of things that maybe I commonly preserve that maybe I'm out of on my shelf downstairs. And with all that, it allowed me to create a list of ingredients that I'd like to have on the pantry shelf. So once I had that list created, I then wrote down what quantity of that item I wanted on the shelf. Some things I have a good idea of what will last us through a year, and other things it's kind of trial and error still as to what quantity we need on the shelf. And then as I was going through my recipes, I wrote down the page number to reference later when I go to actually preserve these items so that I'm not having to go looking for it. And then I also wrote down the pounds of produce that I would need to accomplish the amount that I want to put on my shelves. So I'll show you that here. But once I finished all of that, see if it'll focus here. Once I finished doing all that, I did create a master list up here of the bigger items that I would need. So like for tomatoes, I know I need 300 pounds of tomatoes. And a typical Roma tomato plant will produce anywhere between 20 and 30 pounds of tomatoes. And so I knew that on the lower end, I would need at least 15 plants, 15 tomato plants. So there are some things like apples that we're going to source from Azure. I did that last year and they turned out really, really well. And other things we will grow like tomatillos. So once I had this whole list put together and I had a good idea of the quantities of each produce item that I would need, I then went to my seed starting plan and wrote down the amount of plants that I would need for those items. This just helps me to know my bare minimum, what I need to have in the garden to be able to produce my planned out preservation list. So I'll show that to you as well. So like for the tomatoes, I went right in and wrote down that I need at least 15 plants started. I'll probably start a few more just in case there are some that don't make it in time for planting. And so I'll just show this to you here. So here's our seed starting list. And in here, I just wrote down the number of plants that we would need. And then it also shows on here like what date I need to start it by and gives me room to put the actual start and plant dates and whatnot and make notes. So with all that said, that is essentially how I created my preservation list and then translated that into what plants I need to start and how many. And I hope you stick around for part 3 because we're going to then discuss where everything is going to go in the garden to make this all work. We have 5 raised garden beds, and then we have a almost 30-foot long makeshift high tunnel here at our house. And so part 3 will just be planning out where everything is going to go, really try to compact everything in as much as we can. And then we're also going to discuss the potential high tunnel that we're going to be putting up. We did get approved for a high tunnel and we're just waiting for the final paperwork to go through. And so we're not quite sure if that high tunnel is going to be up and ready to plant in by June 1st. But you'll see in part 3 what my plan is for that. If you enjoyed this video, we'd love for you to like and share it with others. If you're not subscribed already, we'd love for you to stick around and be a part of all of the gardening and the harvesting and preserving that we're going to be doing this year. It's going to be a great time. So we hope you have a great day, friend, and we'll see you next time. Bye.